Nick, thank you so much for jumping on the AIM podcast.
Of course.
I think we
Happy
should
to be here.
I think we should start this episode off with a 30-second smile.
Oh, let's do it. 30 seconds. You just got to feel it.
When you put that up on your story today for all the people listening, and I'll let you kind of explain it. But when you did that and I texted you about this topic of choosing positivity, which we'll dive into deeper, I was like, this is perfect. So talk a little bit about that story and kind of what you were talking about.
Absolutely. So I think it was a long time ago. I was actually listening to another podcast that was basically talking about the science behind like the neurotransmitters and yada, 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 that our brain is trying to believe everything that we're saying out loud. Right. Well, then you dive a little deeper into the emotion of it and the physical senses of how your facial expressions work. Right. So he used the example of 10 seconds of smiling and just like in that sense of smile. And I think one of the things that I've always said is on my stories is don't forget to smile. And that's kind of that my little trigger from myself to just, hey, smile and the positive sides. You can always see the positive sides in life. So getting into that story, I think it was just like today's Monday. A lot of people, the stigma of Monday, like, oh, it's another day. Right. And it's like, how do you reframe that thought process to be like, hey, this is another opportunity and a new week, a new day to do something fun. Right. And I think so today the inspiration came from it's Monday, let's smile, let's get through it and take it from there. Right. So believe the positivity into the air. So you can feel it. Right.
100%. That's good, dude. And I like how you break it down and you talk about like just the intentionality of even like a small facial expression and the impact that has psychologically, emotionally, like it affects you so much. And that's why I think this topic's so interesting. Like everyone's always like, be positive, put out positive energy, and that's good. But I think there's an intentional element that we can even talk about choosing to be positive, because you're not going to be positive every day naturally. I don't think.
Absolutely. I'm with you.
Yeah. And I think there's something to be said about the element of the intentionality of making that decision, whether it be, thoughts you put in their head or the facial expressions you put on your body. And so I think that's something we could really kind of unpack. But I would love to kind of just hear the genesis of your story of like why you do what you do, because I think that'll set the context up for this conversation.
Totally. So, diving back, let's go, I guess, beginning of college, I've really my entire life was an athlete, and playing in the MLB was my big dream goal. And that was kind of where I had all my eggs in one basket. And so I played baseball at Columbia State Community College in Columbia, Tennessee, at a little junior college. Played there for 2 years. Got recruited. My junior year, I went to Austin Peay State University in Clarksville, Tennessee, a little Division I school outside of Nashville. Played there for 2 years. And, I was on the track to get drafted, talking to all these teams, and got hurt, tore my hamstring, then tore my other hamstring. And that definitely attributed to not getting drafted. And then, I was talking to all the free agents and whatnot, and just kind of decided something in me. Like my coach said, hey, let's get you a master's degree and let you coach. And, I've always had kind of a passion for helping people. So did that and coached for a year. And after getting my master's degree, I was like, you know what? I've always self-identified as a baseball player. I want to do something different. And lived in California, drove out to California. I got into personal training at Equinox, and it was really just my passion to like, hey, if I can help one person a day, then I'm fulfilled. Right. So Corona hit, I took everything outside and then kind of started posting on social media, and things started to kind of ramp up, and I kind of realized that was what I was super passionate about. Right. And like one message a day, not even a message a day, but if you feel like you are providing value and you can help one person a day, that's the best feeling ever. Right. So I've kind of been rolling with that, and here we are now. I'm very grateful to have a platform and to be able to interact with so many people on a different level. Right. So, and talking positivity and trying to breed that in others.
Dude, I love that. And honestly, your story resonates. Like I had a background in basketball, and similarly, I put like a lot of my hope, my dream, my identity, my life into that sport.
Mm-hmm.
And I did. I mean, your story just resonates. It's so good. What was that shift for you? Was there a moment? Was there an event, or was it just kind of like a gradual shift from wanting to pursue that dream versus finding fulfillment in reaching others and making a bigger impact? Because I kind of wrestled with that same kind of dynamic.
Yeah, totally. I think it was more a reality of, where do I want to be in the future, and, financially and stability wise, right? And if I was going to go play independent baseball, which I could have, I was going to make $200 every other week, right? And that for me, it was, while that would be great, I think it was more of the practicality and reality of where I wanted to go. And so there was no clear path, but you taking it step by step, and hey, I'm going to try this out. And once you commit, and once you commit to something, try it out, you're going to be presented whether it's good or bad, and it's up to you to make the best of it, right? So that's
Yeah.
kind of the evolution of where I've kind of taken that thought process.
I love that, dude. It's funny because like, and I don't know if you felt this way. I'm interested. Like growing up, when my identity was in basketball, and like I just lived, breathed, died basketball, everything basketball. If I wasn't playing, I was thinking about it. Like I loved it, watching it, whatever. And then kind of making that transition into what I'm doing now with our podcast, our platform, just trying to help people with this mindset of being ambitious and living the best life they can, whether it be through fitness, through business, or whatever it is. It's a mindset you can apply. I didn't know the magnitude of that fulfillment when I was playing. Like I thought basketball fulfilled me, like, and mentally I thought it did, but then when I made that switch, it was just a whole nother level. Like talk about that, like getting a chance to kind of help people through your social media platform, through training, but like the difference in the fulfillment from a sport versus like a calling, you could say.
Yeah, totally. I think, there's definitely obviously the similarities between the two. And, when I was coaching college kids, and I was just 2 years, a year removed from that, there's seeing the fulfillment in their mindset and their goals, and watching, them light up. Right. And I think that was from more of a physical standpoint, right. And achieving different goals and whatnot. And then in training, I think the mental side of that comes in so hardcore, because we have all these goals and these crazy aspirations to have a six pack or whatever it may be. And like a lot of the goals that I was getting from clients was, like changing their body physically. And what I really try to hone in on is, if you can feel great every day mentally,
Mm.
then you're able to change your life. Right. And if you can start stacking that every single day. And once I started getting people, talking positive affirmations and like some of this kind of stuff that's hard to believe in sometimes, but once you start seeing that on a daily basis and stacking those habits up and those practices, you look back in 6 months and you're like, wow, I have come long way physically. So I think there's a different, it's the same, but in the sense, there's a lot more that feeds into someone's life and like translates from training, right? And baseball, you could say the same thing, I guess, but like every pitch is a different situation. But it's definitely a little more broad, and I think that's a really cool way to integrate mental health and physical health, because it's so important.
I love that, dude. That's so good. And I agree. Like physical health is extremely important, but I think I truly believe everything starts mentally, like in the mind, whether it be through fitness or through business. Like if you don't have the mind right, if you don't are not thinking positively or thinking clearly, like it's going to be hard to execute to your maximum potential and be fulfilled doing something that you truly love.
Absolutely. I'm with you.
Yeah, that's good, man. I want to talk to you about kind of what it looks like to choose positivity. You do a lot of cool things, and I'll let you kind of take this however you want. I know you're big on routines, kind of the small things, the practices you do in order to set you up for success. I know if you look at your content, like a really cool theme is you dance, you smile, you do some fun stuff before the actual value that you provide. Even though I'd argue that that setup is value too, because you're indirectly promoting positivity. But what are some things that you do to kind of engage in that positive mindset?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, just like on the dancing subject, I think vulnerability is one of the biggest keys to life. And I firmly believe that connection with people is by sharing our stories, by sharing who we are as people. And I think growing up seeing social media, there is a very like elegant lifestyle, and like you follow these people, and it can get a little intangible. And for me, like all my friends know that I'm just a goofball, and diving into a little bit more of my philosophy on where I put this energy out is like I'm 6'4" and a pretty big guy. Like I'm pretty intimidating if you see me in the gym. Right. And I really want to rid of that stigma that that fitness is scary. And, like, how are we supposed to promote health and wellness if it's scary to get started? Right. And, I'm a big believer in, being your best self, being your most genuine self. So that dancing aspect has always, I was just like, you know what, I'm putting it on there. And that's originally what kind of happened on TikTok. And then I incorporated it on Instagram. And I think people resonate with it in the sense that, like, I dance too. I just don't throw it up on social media. Right. So, that's diving into a different rabbit hole, but the vulnerability aspect is huge for me. And then, talking about like routines and practices and, positivity, I think it all starts in awareness of self-talk. And, where does that come from? Well, I think I started meditating and journaling a long time ago, and positive, mental health has always been a part of my life. And the more that I started to practice this meditation and journaling and getting my thoughts out in front of me and coming back to a center, I realized that the awareness of that self-talk was more and more present. And, the more that you can, I think I alluded a lot to the language with yourself, right? So self-talk, get to versus have to. And that was originally the first thing that I ever heard that was like, whoa, like I can change how I feel and look at the world just based on your perspective. Right. So that was something I implemented a long time ago, and just trying to be aware of like, hey, I'm having a negative thought, and I'd love to dive into this with you. I don't know if you've read the book Think and Grow Rich, but have you read that book?
I haven't read it, but I've obviously seen references from it and heard people talk about it. It sounds like a great book.
It's absolutely incredible. It sat on my shelf for about 2 months while I was reading other books, and I'm so mad I didn't start it earlier. But so I've always been deep down, like, positivity is huge, right? And I've always had this awareness of like, okay, if I have a negative thought, I can take that. As long as I recognize it, it doesn't mean that you're being negative. If you recognize it and say, hey, how do I take this negative thought, flip it and restructure it so that it's constructive for you? And in this book, he starts to talk about acceptance and being able to accept thoughts. And that has been one of the most changing things in my life so far. Like, if you can take that thought now and you feel this negative thought, you recognize it, and you say, hey, that negative thought is there, don't even choose to accept it. If you don't choose to accept that there's even that option, you can start to do incredible things, right? And I think that's something that's been sticking with me lately. We'll get, I guess, more into routines too. I guess morning routines are huge for me. That's how you set your day. And you were talking on intentionality, set the intention for the day as soon as you wake up. Get in a routine, try not to check your phone for 60 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is, because if you can put yourself first, if we're checking our phones, we're putting other people's needs first, right? We're going to see emails, we're going to see texts, we're going to see everything from a different lens instead of putting ourselves first. Right. And so that's a huge thing for me. And, the morning practices, I do something cold, put myself in an uncomfortable situation to start the day. Then you go into, I'm usually at the gym by 6 a.m. Then I go to a sauna, come back, get some work done. So kind of all over the place, but.
Oh, I love that, dude. I mean, there's so much good stuff that you just brought through that. I want to touch real quick. Don't want to go back too far, but about vulnerability. You talk about that, and I think it's so good, because I think we live in a world where people are constantly just trying to be perfect and like show their best self. And I think it's interesting, right? Because people are trying to present themselves and market themselves. And I think to some degree it's okay. But I think when you're always have your guard up and you're always trying to put out this perfect image, I think it really does deconstruct the positive image you have of yourself. Like, I think at your genuine, just base level of who you are, you got to accept it. And I think that really does I think it has a big role in how you view things from a positive standpoint as well.
Absolutely. It's huge, right? I think what you said, especially on, accepting yourself, we try to put this perfect image out, and what's the reality of that? Like, we're going to fail. And that kind of goes back to you saying, like, not every day is going to be positive.
Right.
If you take in and accept that you're going to fail, well, there's failure can be constructive if you choose for it to be, right. And when you know that you're going to have those failures and you can be vulnerable about it and accept it, you can move on and grow from it. And I think that's ultimately in my opinion, my game of life is how do you grow as much as you can every single day, right?
No doubt. And I think too, like, even going a step further with the dancing stuff you do, like it is not taking life too seriously, but having fun with it. Like stress is, I don't want to come across and say stress is always a bad thing. Sometimes stress is a good thing and it can help you. But when you're not thinking of it in the correct lens and stress becomes this just overwhelming like cloud over you, it is gonna impact the way you think about things positively. And so being able to kind of peel back some of those layers and be like, look, let's go have fun today. This, like you said, we get to do this today. Like, let's make the most of it, even if it's not something that is the top of our priority list and we're like super jacked to do it. There's still some opportunity in that moment. And I think that's what we can cling to and ultimately kind of feed in right into our mindset to be positive.
Absolutely. I love that. I absolutely love that. The more you can feed and create that momentum and run with it, the more you're going to grow, right? And that failure is a part of it. So
Yeah. What are some other, like, maybe this, I think this is valuable to talk about. What are some other limitations on having a positive mindset that you've seen maybe in your life or different places where you've tried to be positive, but it's been tough to because of X? Like, what are some things that people might run into as they're pursuing this life of trying to be positive?
I think there's the first thing I think of is not really faking it. I think is a, and positivity, I think in my opinion, can definitely get a different reputation in a way. The connotation of it is like, oh, it's kind of rah sometimes, but how do you kind of that idea of fake it till you make it? And I think a lot of people run into like, oh, I want to be super positive, and like maybe they're setting out for some new goals, and you hit day 17 and it's like it's really hard, and it's like, oh, this isn't working. Maybe it's not going the way you want it to, right?
Sure.
And you see that a lot, especially with like I see it all the time, like with the scale. And I hate scale. The scale is my worst enemy, just in the sense of like the mental games that it plays with people, and we can dive into that if you want. But if people see that they're not making maybe as much progress, like, oh, this doesn't work. Well, how do you dive into that on a deeper level? You have to believe what you're saying. And I say you can fake it till you make it, but if there's not a sense of intentionality and saying it outwardly and really having faith and believing in that, is that's super powerful in itself. And I think there's an art to the manifestation and the routines that you do to ultimately make it happen. But I would say that that's probably the main thing that, even, I mean, we all run into it, right? Like it's day 17 of whatever you're doing, and you wake up and you don't really want to wake up, right? It's winning that battle with the inner voice on a
Yeah.
daily basis.
Dude, I love that. I do love that. And I think, you talk about the positive talk, the different things that you can't control. I think a lot of people forget that you can control that. Like they
Mm-hmm.
just assume sometimes, not, I don't want to speak generally, but there have been times even in my life where I've assumed that I've got to accept this circumstance. I've got to accept what I'm dealing with. I get to choose a lot about the way I talk to myself and how I present my mind to that opportunity, that circumstance, that situation. And I think that sometimes we forget we have that power.
Absolutely. And there's another kind of like on the smiling exercise. Another thing that I do is I'll wake up and I'll say out loud 5 times, I am excited for today. And the more that you say that out loud and your brain feels your vocal cords, it's wanting to believe it outwardly. It's becoming a part of your subconscious, right? And I think you could argue that when you want to get motivated for something, you have to get excited for it, right? And if you do believe in that, kind of not fake it till you make it, but you're literally putting it out for the world to hear and your own brain to hear. So I am excited for today is another practice that I use.
I love that. I put out a piece of content, I think it was last week, about like this intent. I'm been really like studying, like, okay, there's so many things people say: be positive, do hard things. So there's all these sayings, right? But I think the I want to go a step further, and like this conversation is good because I think there's an intentional aspect of what you need to do after the event that can help you get even more out of it. And what I'm kind of setting this up. So the content I put out was about doing hard things. Like it's super important. I know you've put out this similar content as well, but I think the intentionality of it after you do a hard thing is like to acknowledge it, appreciate it, and then reward yourself for doing it. I think the same kind of structure can apply to being positive too, like rewarding yourself and psychologically training your mind to desire that type of thinking, that type of outlook on life.
Absolutely. There's once you kind of get in that groove and that flow state of flow state, the of yeah, once you get in that state of flow that and you feel it, you desire to want to feel that all the time, right? And I think like what you were hitting on with doing hard things, that's something I am huge on, and I don't I don't want to get that twisted with like it can be fun, but that doesn't mean has to be easy. You just have to change the outlook on something, right? Like David Goggins talks about it all the time. He doesn't want to get up and run all the time, but he does it because it's part of who he is. It's part of his standards, his values. And I think for me, like especially with running, is it's the way you feel after, and that is a reward in itself. And like I was saying, once you get in that flow state and you recognize what it feels like, you want more and you want more. And even if you have to go through that battle with your inner voice and that other voice is talking to you saying no, that's super powerful.
Dude, that's good. Yeah, the running thing's big. Like honestly, running's the thing, and maybe I wouldn't consider myself a runner. I'm training for a marathon, but I'm not a runner.
Love it.
I think that's the way I like to put it. But it's, dude, every time that I don't want to run, when I do choose to run afterwards, I've never, ever regretted it. Ever. Ever.
Absolutely.
It's just, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I'm sure there's like the stuff, I'm sure you might know more about the science behind it, but I've never regretted it. It's always been like, man,
Absolutely.
I did that.
Is it the same for you where you get to about like half a mile and it really sucks, and then you're on like mile 3 and I could go for 10 more miles, like, right?
I've had a handful of those days. You just have to break
Right.
through and get into that zone for sure.
Absolutely. I'm the same as you. I enjoy it, but
I want to talk about community and how this impacts positivity and choosing positivity. The people you surround yourself with, I would say, are influential and make an impact. What's your take on this? What are some things that you've done to structure maybe your friend group or the people you surround yourself with in order to accomplish choosing positivity?
yeah, totally. I think that's huge. It's, what's that quote where you are the sum of the 5 people that you hang around the most.
For sure.
And if you can surround yourself with people that are like-minded, that are open-minded, that are, similar to where you're trying to go in life, that's ultimately going to create that community, right? And, I think that is one of the things that people overlook, right? And it's like it's not necessarily, you're not going to hang around somebody that may be negative or doesn't think the same way, but it's again being aware that, hey, maybe this person is putting out this energy, and it doesn't mean that you have to walk away from them, but you can subconsciously be like, I'm going to entertain it, and these people are feeling the way they're feeling for a certain reason, right? And that's okay. But if you choose the right people and ultimately, all have the same goal in mind, you're all going to level up together, and not necessarily level up financially or in the terms of quote unquote success. And the definition of success is, different for everyone, but you're ultimately going to see yourself mentally clear. You're going to see yourself, living a better life, in my opinion. So I think that's huge, man. That's something I carry very close to me.
I love that. Yeah, you mean, dude. Yeah, it's super cool to see the way that people impact others. Like you're saying, like, what you find fulfillment and impacting people. But like when you're positive, I truly believe that type of energy attracts good energy. And I'm a big believer in that. And I think honestly, that's why you and I have a great vibe, is just because you're a beast. You have so much positive energy. And I can tell, I know how you are. And I don't even know you that well. I haven't known you for a long period of time, but in the short span of our friendship, I do know that you're going to wake up, you're going to be positive, you're going to push yourself to be better, and you're going to want to make the people around you better. And that type of energy is attractive. Like people want to be around people that do that.
I appreciate that. Yeah, no, it's huge. I mean, you do, and I'm a firm believer in that as well. You attract the energy that you put out, and the more you can do good, the more good's going to come around, and that's in different forms. Is like I said, I talk about friction and flow a lot. And friction, what is friction? It's like if my banana drops on the floor, like, oh, like that's really crappy, but maybe that was meant to, like, it's such a stupid example, but it's like there is, you're not going to get mad at it, right? Like if there's certain little things of friction, things pop up, you get in traffic on the way home. Well, this is supposed to happen, right? And you can go deeper on that, but it's all about perspective and how do you create momentum through that perspective?
Dude, I love that. where have you seen in your life the impact, the result of positive energy? Like, are there certain things that you've seen succeed or kind of develop because of consistency with the way you think positively?
You know, I think connection with other people is probably the biggest thing, right? And this is something Gary Vee talks on all the time is, surrounding yourself with good people. But how do you do that? It's by being kind. And when you're kind, you attract other like people, right? So yeah, I think, being kind, that's a huge part in, any of that success and breeding the energy that you want to come back to you. So
No doubt. I love that, dude. I think kindness is huge. And I think I'm a big believer. I've talked about it and other people have, said similar things like energy creates opportunities. Like the more energy you put out, like things start to happen for you. And I believe that. I'm not saying like you're never going to get an opportunity if you're not energetic and you don't, and everyone has different personality types. So I'm not saying everyone listening to this needs to go out and just be a spaz and just be crazy with it. But I do believe like if you're in a rut, if you're in a situation, you're like, man, I just don't feel like things are going for me. Like, are you pursuing life with positive energy? Are you pursuing life with just energy in general, like trying to make things happen? And I think things start to fall in place when you do that over time.
totally, that's huge. And I think I totally agree with you. Like, not everyone, like it's not for everyone. And like some of us are more introverted, extroverted. I feel like I'm more introverted on this. Like I like my me time and my time to journal and meditate, right, and work on ourselves. But I think like what you were saying, there's different levels to it, and especially like for me, I feel like my platform and the people that follow me and I interact with on a daily basis, it's a lot about starting, right? And a lot of starting to me is getting excited about it and doing the little things right to build these successful habits and the discipline to get to where you want to be. And then once you're there and you start to catch on to like we're talking about, you feel that feeling. Well, now it's about creating momentum. And the different level of that is, all right, now I'm here. Maybe I've achieved my goal. Well, you're not going to, if you lost 100 pounds, you don't want to put 100 pounds back on, right? How do I keep going? How do I maintain or keep growing in different ways and keep those established habits consistent, right? So different levels to it, and like for those of the people that are already there, right? And like that, it's awesome. And I think that's like so.
Yeah, I agree. I love that, you touched on the momentum side of things. It's like, this is the coolest thing for me. I think that the hardest part is getting started. It's breaking through that wall and saying, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna pursue positivity. I'm gonna put myself out there. I'm gonna chase my dreams. I'm not gonna make any more excuses about myself. Like breaking through that wall is awesome. And there will be hurdles along the way after that. I'm not saying it's gonna be smooth sailing, but I think like what you're saying, what'll happen is when you do pursue that lifestyle, that mindset, you're gonna see fruit from it. And then that stuff gets contagious and it also breeds internal confidence where you're like, I put myself out there and I've seen like little glimpses of success. It doesn't even have to be like a blockbuster hit overnight, like just a little bit of success. You're like, that's that feeling that I can carry when things get tough. And I know that I can produce more if I keep my head down and keep going.
Yeah, I love what you said about confidence. That's huge. Like I plan my day the night before every night, write a little checklist, and every time you get something done, you mark that thing off, strike it through, and you're building confidence with yourself with each thing you do, right? And it's that, I think like what you're talking on too is like once you do establish that and you've started with positivity at a subconscious level, you know that that's in you. And once we start to choose these different things and continue with our consistency, it starts to build and our subconscious takes over to say, hey, like we can do this, right? So
So
that's,
good.
yeah, oh, I love that.
My man, let's go. What do you have coming up planned, man? What are you working on right now? Is there anything you're interested in kind of sharing that you're excited about?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think for me, it's a continual growth with others and being a part of a team. And there's different brands that we work with and that we're building. And I have my own hopes and aspirations and things that I'm working on a side. There's actually I'm working on an apparel brand and some pretty cool stuff. Just kind
Awesome.
of centered around this as well, positivity. So and I think what you're doing is great with this podcast. It's awesome. I love keeping up with it. And I'm kind of doing the same, just trying to spread the positivity and perspective. And just day by day continued consistency, right?
I
So
love it, dude. Yeah, make sure everyone listening checks out your podcast. I'll let you kind of plug it really quick. It's really good. I've listened to some of your content on it, and I just think the concept is amazing.
yeah, it's the morning takeaway. It's just on my YouTube channel, hanging out on YouTube. So once I'm at 50, I've got it set up that I'm gonna go Spotify and whatnot, and then I'll have to get you on there as well. We'll kind of
So
do the reciprocal. So
I love it, man.
yeah,
I love it. Nick, thank you so much for jumping on the AIM podcast. It's been a fun one. And honestly, I think it's a conversation that a lot of people are going to enjoy.
absolutely. I appreciate you having me on. It's fun to talk about this stuff.
Let's go.